welcome to the Webcast for Saturday, June 27th. I'm South Ops meteorologist Jonathan O'Brien. Visible satellite this morning shows June gloom is out in full force with a deep marine layer pushing low clouds all the way back to the coastal slopes and even into some of the interior valleys. Get used to this pattern, as an unusually deep western U.S. trough is going to keep us cool and in many cases cloudy for a number of days to come. We have some very windy conditions across the interior this morning as well. Here's a look at some current wind observations with the wind gust values shown in red. We're seeing widespread gusts of 30 to 50 miles per hour and locally higher across the typical wind-prone interior areas, especially in the deserts. These strong winds will continue through today and tonight with even local gusts over 60 miles per hour likely and generally enhanced breeziness in much of the region. And with those strong winds and dry conditions, we continue to see red flag warnings in effect for some interior portions of the region, again, especially in the desert areas. These will remain in effect through this evening. Because of the lack of continuous fuel and/or ignition sources in many of these highlighted areas, the actual potential for any significant fires to occur is limited. However, should for whatever reason any starts occur on a continuous fuel bed in these areas, the conditional potential for fire spread is very high, and that is why we see these warnings in effect. Here's a look at the forecast highs for today. We are continuing our cooling trend and we'll see highs falling 10 or more degrees below seasonal averages. Valley highs will only reach the 70s and 80s. And as we look at the upper air maps, the big story for the next 7 days will be this highly unusual western U.S. troughing pattern that is more typical of deep winter than early summer. As time goes on, we will see the trough gradually weaken, but only very slowly, and multiple reinforcing troughs dropping into the Pacific Northwest will keep this general pattern in place, likely all the way through the July 4th holiday. Tomorrow may be the coolest day of this stretch in many areas, with valley highs in some cases struggling to get out of the 60s, and even the Central Valley only in the low to mid 80s. Even the low desert will fall mostly below 100 degrees. But while tomorrow may be the coolest day, we are really not expecting any meaningful recovery in temperatures over the next several days, with well below normal temperatures continuing and only adding a couple of degrees through the middle of next week in most cases. Here's a look at the forecast highs by Thursday, still far below where we should be this time of year. As we're already seeing, a deep marine layer will remain prevalent with night and morning low clouds expanding onto the coastal slopes most days. Clearing is likely to be slow, patchy, and in some cases non-existent for the next several days. While the marine layer will be very deep, the air above and inland from it will be quite dry, so minimum humidities of 12 to 25% will remain common across the interior for most of the upcoming week. We saw those very gusty winds out there earlier, and those will continue as well due to the continued troughing. While winds will be strongest overall today, southwest to northwest winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts to 50 miles per hour will remain common across the interior mountain ridges and desert passes for most of the coming week. Just looking briefly at the longer range and heading towards the July 4th weekend, the Climate Prediction Center does indicate some above normal temperatures trying to work into the region by the second week of July. However, we're not seeing much in the way of potential for extreme heat, perhaps just a gradual trend back towards more typical summer-like conditions. And it's quite likely temperatures will remain below normal through the 4th of July holiday itself. Here's a look at the observed and forecast 100-hour dead fuel moisture for South Ops as a whole. We've generally been pretty close to normal for much of the past several weeks, with only typical ups and downs. However, we're now getting into a more sustained pattern of higher than normal dead fuel moisture conditions. This trend is most heavily driven by conditions in the coastal areas due to the deep marine layer, but most PSAs will be seeing above normal dead fuel moistures this week, along with ERC values below and in some cases well below seasonal normals. So in terms of fire potential, not surprisingly, it is going to be on the downtrend, and we are really heading towards an environment of unusually low fire potential for an extended duration during what is typically a busy time of the year. There will remain that conditional fire spread potential across the interior areas and especially the deserts due to the gusty winds. But when we think about the weather patterns that typically give us problems this time of year, this is about the best pattern you can have to avoid any of that. Initial attack activity should be quite light, and while a larger grass fire could still occur on well-aligned starts, the potential for any major multi-burn period type fires is going to be well below where it would normally be over the next several days. That's it for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. Next one will be on Sunday, June 28th.